War is a force that reshapes the land, the sky, and the minds of those who endure it. Some battlefields are temporary, places of bloodshed and ruin before being abandoned to history. Others become eternal. The Iron Wall of Dhu al-Qarnayn is one such place. It is not merely a fortification, it is a statement, a boundary between the known and the unknowable, between civilization and the abyss. In the world of Trench Crusade, where faith and firepower are all that stand against annihilation, the Iron Wall is a bulwark against something far worse than simple war. Beyond it, reality itself is twisted. The Heretics gather in uncounted numbers, their guns, their war engines, and their corrupted masses forever seeking to breach its sacred gates. Yet no matter how many times they throw themselves against it, no matter how many shells they fire or monstrosities they unleash, the wall remains. It has stood for centuries, untouched, unbroken, and undying. Not because of its craftsmanship alone, nor the warriors who guard its heights, but because it represents something more. It is the threshold of belief, the very idea that something, somewhere, is incorruptible. And that is precisely why the Heretics seek to tear it down. Yet the wall does not fall, it does not yield. The great cannons atop its heights fire into the night, sending thunderous shockwaves across the battlefield. Czech hedgehogs and tank traps choke the no-man's land beyond, a graveyard of twisted steel where the enemy's advance is slowed, broken, and stopped. And still, the Sultanate's defenders wait, knowing that tomorrow, like every day before it, the battle will begin again. For the Iron Wall is not simply a defense, it is the last line of civilization. And beyond it, there is only nightmare. The Iron Wall is the edge of the world, the line where civilization ends. But what lies behind it is no mere frontier. It is the beating heart of a nation that has endured against the impossible. The Sultanate of the Iron Wall is not simply a kingdom. It is a statement of survival, a living testament to the resilience of those who believe. Bound between the Taurus Mountains to the north and the Zagros Mountains to the east, the Sultanate forms a crescent, an empire shaped by war, but defined by faith. It is the last and greatest bastion of humanity in this endless conflict, the final realm where the faithful still walk in the light. To the west, the Sultanate flourishes. Towering minarets and glittering domes rise above bustling cities, where scholars debate theology in tiled courtyards and merchants trade in spice, silk, and steel. These lands are ancient, built upon the bones of fallen empires, their streets woven with history as much as they are with faith. The people here do not simply exist, they thrive, carving out a life even as the spectre of war looms over them. But as one travels eastward, the world begins to change. The air grows heavier, the land harder. Fertile fields give way to craggy wastes, and the songs of markets and prayers are replaced by the distant thunder of artillery fire. Cities here are no longer places of commerce, but fortresses, bastions carved into the mountains, their walls thick with centuries of siege scars. Every road is a supply line, every town a redoubt, every street built for war. The people of these lands do not know peace, but they do not seek it. For they live in the shadow of the wall, where vigilance is not a choice, but a way of life. Every family has sent sons and daughters to stand upon its heights. Every household knows the cost of failure. Here, war is not a distant horror. It is a constant presence, a certainty as immutable as the sunrise. And yet, even these lands pale in comparison to what lies closest to the wall itself. Here, there is no pretense of civilization. The earth is scorched, a ruined wasteland littered with the rusted husks of war machines and the unmarked graves of the fallen. Trench lines, artillery craters, and fortifications stretch for miles in every direction, each telling the story of battles long past. The very ground is scarred, torn open by centuries of war, and in the choking haze of smoke and dust, only the Iron Wall itself remains untouched. The killing fields, the last line. Beyond this place there is no sanctuary, only annihilation. There are fortresses, and then there is the Iron Wall of Dhu al-Qarnayn. A wall built by human hands should have crumbled long ago. No stone, no steel, no mortal construction should be able to withstand what this one has endured. And yet, against all logic, against all the forces that seek to destroy it, the wall remains. It gleams in the daylight, untouched by rust or ruin. Its polished steel plating reflects the morning sun like a newly forged blade, a sight so pristine that even the heretics, in their hatred, must look upon it with awe. By night, it becomes something else entirely, a celestial colossus, its surface embedded with gemstones that shimmer with unnatural brilliance. Some say the wall was blessed, that its material is not of this world. Others claim that it is alive, that it watches, waits, and judges. Perhaps they are right. The wall is no passive guardian. It does not simply endure, it punishes. Beneath its gleaming exterior, molten metal flows like blood through veins, coursing through channels deep within its structure. When the forces of hell have, on rare occasions, managed to crack its surface, the wall itself has answered. The wound opens, but instead of weakness, it spews death. Liquid fire erupts outward, swallowing invaders in a tide of molten fury, searing flesh and melting armor in an instant. The wall is not simply a structure, it is a weapon, a living rampart that heals its own wounds, reforging itself with the same molten blood it uses to destroy its enemies. This is why the heretics despise it. They have thrown everything at it: siege weapons of impossible scale, artillery bombardments lasting decades, horrors that should not exist. And yet, the wall stands, its gates unbroken, its towers unmoved. But it is not invincible. For all its might, for all its seeming immortality, the wall is bound by prophecy. The words of Dhu al-Qarnayn are known to all who guard it. This is a mercy from my Lord, but when the promise of my Lord cometh to pass, he will lay it low, for the promise of my Lord is true. And so, the warriors of the Sultanate stand upon its heights, watching the horizon with steady hands and silent prayers. For though the iron wall does not fall, they know that one day, it might. And if that day comes, there will be no salvation, only fire. To stand atop the iron wall of Dhu al-Qarnayn is to look upon the very edge of existence. Beyond its unbroken heights, there is no civilization, no respite, no law, only nightmare. The land beyond the wall does not merely belong to the heretics. It is their crucible, their breeding ground, a realm shaped by madness and war. Here, war is not just waged, it is worshipped. Blood-soaked battlefields stretch to the horizon, their craters filled with the bones of 1,000 failed invasions. The air is thick with the scent of rot and burnt metal, the sky blackened by the endless churn of smoke and ash. The heretics do not build cities, they build war foundries, nightmare engines that vomit out endless legions of fanatics, mutants and war beasts. To them, destruction is not a strategy, it is a calling. They hurl themselves at the iron wall, not out of desperation, but devotion. They do not seek victory in the traditional sense. They seek corruption. And the land itself seems to respond. It is whispered that the ground beyond the wall is cursed, rejecting the faithful, as if the very soil itself is hostile to those who do not kneel before the darkness. Mud turns to sludge, roads collapse, and supplies rot where they stand. This is not a battlefield. It is a graveyard that refuses to let its dead rest. And yet, the assaults never cease. The heretics come in waves, hordes of screaming zealots, nightmarish war machines, siege cannons the size of fortresses. Their artillery has pounded the wall for centuries. Their siege towers have burned at its base, and their bestial warbands have spilled over its battlements. Yet every attempt has ended the same way, in failure. For every breach, the wall bleeds molten metal and seals itself anew. For every fallen warrior, another takes their place upon its battlements. The cannons of the Sultanate roar in the night, cutting down entire legions before they can even reach the gates. And so the war continues. For the heretics, there is no retreat, only the certainty that they will either conquer the wall or be consumed by it. And for the defenders of the Sultanate, there is only the knowledge that tomorrow, the enemy will return, as they always have, as they always will. The Iron Wall of Dhu al-Qarnayn has stood for centuries. It has endured the siege engines of hell, the wrath of blasphemous artillery, and the endless tide of the heretics. It is a monument to defiance, a citadel of faith, an act of divine craftsmanship that has never known defeat. But nothing lasts forever. Those who defend the wall know this truth better than any. They have heard the words, spoken in hushed reverence, whispered like a prayer, and a warning both. This is a mercy from my Lord, but when the promise of my Lord cometh to pass, he will lay it low, for the promise of my Lord is true. Some believe the wall will never fall, that it is eternal, protected by forces beyond mortal comprehension. Others believe that, when the end does come, it will be neither slow nor merciful. One day, the molten blood that courses through the wall's veins will cool. One day, the fortresses built into its foundation will crumble. One day, the gates that have never been breached will shatter. And when that day comes, there will be no retreat, no final defense, no hidden salvation. There will only be ruin. The heretics will not hesitate. They have waited too long, sacrificed too much, and thrown too many bodies into the fire to stop now. The moment the first crack appears, they will flood through like a broken dam, not as an army, but as a cataclysm. What happens then, no one can say. Perhaps the Sultanate will make its last stand in the cities beyond, its warriors and scholars and faithful alike taking up arms in a battle that can only end in extinction. Perhaps, in its final moments, the wall itself will enact some great, final punishment, taking the enemy with it as it collapses into a sea of molten death. Or perhaps the last of those who believe will be forced to flee, abandoning the land they have fought for over countless generations. But until that day comes, the Iron Wall stands. Its defenders wait, the enemy gathers, and the cannons fire over and over into the night, for now.